Hello, KW family. I wanted to jump in this morning and walk you through the important actions needed in order to start working with a buyer as a client. So we know that in the state of South Carolina, everybody is a customer until they sign an agency agreement making them a client. In order to do that, there are two documents necessary. I already have a DocuSign room here, as you can see, and I've got two documents, the SCAR 110 and the SCAR 130. The first one's going to be the disclosure of brokerage relationships. The second one is going to be the exclusive right to buy buyer agency contract. Now, I'm not going to read these to you word for word. I want you to do that yourself. However, I want to make sure that you understand the document as a general rule of thumb, what it's for, why it's important, and how to execute the signatures on this properly to make sure that we're properly under an agency contract and your compliance process goes as smoothly as possible. This form, as mentioned, is the SCAR 110 form, the disclosure of brokerage relationships. Whether someone's going to remain a customer or a client, this document is required by state license law. It must be done at the first practical opportunity when you and the licensee have substantive contact, you being the customer. All right. Now, it's going to go on and it's going to explain the importance of brokerage relationship, what that means, how you work as an agent through your broker in charge, how they get the ultimate choice as to who they work with. It explains what being a customer is. So these are the details of what you can and cannot do until you're under agency. As we scroll on down lower on page 1 of this document, you can become a client of the brokerage, which is our ultimate goal, right? We want to work with buyers as clients. This is what happens when they are a buyer and they become a client. These are the things that change in addition to the customer things. What else we can do? We're now working in their best fiduciary responsibility because they've established an agency agreement with us. So the first page talks about customer versus client. The second page is going to talk about the types of agency: single, dual, disclosed dual, and designated agency. It is your responsibility to understand these and explain these to your client. The majority of the time, you're going to be working in single agency. Before I get there, remember up top here, if you enter into a written agency agreement, the real estate brokerage has the following client level duties. You can remember these by remembering the acronym OLD-CAR: obedience, loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality, accounting, and reasonable skill and care. These services also include advice, counsel, and assistance in negotiations. Remember, we cannot give advice, counsel, or assistance in negotiations unless they have executed a buyer agency agreement. In the event you represent both sides of the deal, or our brokerage represents both sides of the deal, you're going to be entering into a dual or designated agency agreement with the client. We'll talk more about that later once we get to the buyer agency document, and then further in additional videos on more detailed differences between dual and designated agency versus single agency. Ultimately, it is the client's choice, and this specific document is not a contract. However, they have to sign it, remember, at the first substantive contact. Make sure you read this document. We're going to cover the signatures here in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and click Save and Close. There's nothing to add or edit in this specific document. Now I'm going to go ahead and open up the SCAR 130 form, the exclusive right to buy buyer agency contract. This is a contract. This is the document that takes them from being a customer to a client. Step 1 or section 1, this is where they're appointing a broker. They are signing this contract with the brokerage, not with you. You work underneath the broker in charge as a licensee. Therefore, the contract is with the brokerage. So appointment of broker, you're going to want to make sure you have your client's names in the first section here. You can see these auto-filled from the opportunity in command, and you're going to want to make sure that the brokerage name is listed. In this case, I'm licensed with Keller Williams Palmetto. If you are with Keller Williams Columbia, it needs to read Keller Williams Columbia. Your name is not to be in this box. Your broker's name is not to be in this box. It should be the brokerage, Keller Williams Palmetto or Keller Williams Columbia. Purpose of agency. This is where we're going to get detailed about what the buyer desires to purchase. In this case, we're going to go residential. General description. In this case, we're going to go single family home. Approximate price range. You always want to go a little more than what they're pre-approved for, because you might be able to negotiate that price down. All right. So in this case, I'm going to go up to $250,000. Some people choose to put a term in there greater than $1. Depends on how you want to execute that. General location. Again, it depends on how specific you want to get. If you limit yourself to a place like Forest Acres, this agency agreement is then only good for Forest Acres. So we want to make sure we get really broad, in my opinion, on the general location. Also remember, I am not your broker in charge. If you have any questions over this document or specifics about what you can or cannot say, make sure you reach out to your broker in charge. However, in this case, general location, I'm going to put the Midlands. Preferred terms. This could be FHA, VA, conventional. It could be cash. We could, leave that there. Other can be left blank. Broker's duties. Go back and read this document. Okay. Again, I'm not going to read it to you word for word. I just want to make sure that you understand how to execute the document. Okay. So we filled in all the fields now on the first half of page 1. The broker's duties. These are your duties. Okay. And the broker's duties. These are the things that you are required to do or not allowed to do after this document has been executed. It talks further about license law, and this is letting your client, soon to be client, know what you can and can't do. By agreeing to this document in section 4, the buyer also agrees to do some things, okay? They're agreeing to work exclusively with you. They're agreeing to assist you in identifying, negotiating, and contracting to purchase or otherwise acquire by these following methods. They are providing us with the following information. Okay, read this word for word. Make sure you understand it before you talk to your clients so that you can answer questions appropriately. Section 5 on page 2, how you're going to get paid. One of the most important things here. You need to check a box. Brokerage fee or other. 99.9% of the time, it's going to be brokerage fee for you. If you think it needs to be other, let's have a conversation. Depending on how you want to get paid depends on whether you choose option 1 and 2 and what your client's going to be willing to work with. Okay. Right now, if you choose option 2, you're going to get paid however the MLS says you're going to get paid, or the compensation agreement that you execute with the seller of the home in the event it is a for sale by owner or off-market home. That's how you're going to get paid. So if the MLS has it listed as a 0% broker compensation, guess what? You're going to make 0% unless you execute an additional compensation agreement. If you want to guarantee that you make a minimum of 3% or a minimum of a certain dollar amount on any transaction, then you need to execute option 1. In option 1, I can put buyer shall pay broker or a brokerage fee, which is greater of $0 or 3%. Again, you can make those what you are working for, right? In the event the MLS at that point says that you're going to get a 2% compensation, your buyer will then make up the 1% difference to get you to the total of 3. I typically put 90 days here. If within 90 days after expiration of this contract, they buy or lease any property which the broker has negotiated during the term of this contract, buyer will pay broker the brokerage fee stated above. Your option here, you choose option 1 or 2. We're going to allow your buyer to select option 1 or 2 or sign off on the option 1 or 2 when we get to the e-signature phase. We're going to scroll on down. We're going to leave everything in option B blank. I'm going to go ahead and put dashes in these other fields just so we know that there's nothing there. Section 6, we want to make sure we execute a term of agency. In this case, I'm doing this video on June 3rd of 2021, and I like to execute all of my agreements for a minimum of 1 year. Now, it's up to you how long you want that term to last. Make sure you get the next year in. So in this case, I'm doing a 1 year agreement, June 2nd of 2022. You will have agreements where the client only wants to execute for 3 months or 6 months, or maybe on a specific home. Okay. Again, this is a contract between you and your buyer, and all of those things are negotiable. In section 7 right now, we're not going to add any information. We're going to talk about this in the e-signature phase here in just a moment as to how they select in option 7. You are to initial all applicable choices, which means you only need to initial 3 of them, or your buyer only needs to initial 3 of them. We're going to talk how to pick those in just a second. Section 8, again, read the document for the words. Other potential buyers you may be working with, or the broker may be working with other buyers looking for the same home. Indemnification of broker, right? Let's keep us out of broker jail. Disclosure of buyer's identity and confidentiality. This is one of the number 1 missed spots on a buyer agency agreement, and it is super important. Do you or do you not have the ability to disclose the buyer's identity on the contract? 99.9% of the time, again, it's going to be does. However, there are caveats to that. There are people that don't want to be disclosed on their buyer or on their contract to purchase a home. Be aware of that. Talk to your buyers about that before you send this to them for signature. Broker liability limitations. Again, read this word for word. Non-discrimination. Make sure we are following all fair housing. Professional counsel. We are not attorneys. We are not tax advisors. We are not appraisers, surveyors, engineers, home inspectors. We are real estate agents. We are realtors. Make sure that you are providing counsel in the correct area where you are licensed to do that, and not areas where you're not. Mediation, they're agreeing to mediation. Sex offender criminal information search, you are not allowed to provide that information. You can refer them to the sex offender registry. This is a binding agreement. Any contingencies here that you might or might not want to add, the majority of the time you're not going to have one there. How we're going to communicate in section 18. Section 19, super important that you talk to your buyers before you go look at homes that they might be under video and audio surveillance. The seller could be recording those things. You want to be careful what you talk about in the home while you're showing a home. Again, this is the legal binding agreement. Here, we want to make sure that we include for every buyer a valid email address and a valid phone number and their current address. All of these are super important and absolutely required in order for you to pass compliance. So make sure you go ahead and put that information in before you execute. Okay. In this case, I'm going to put my market center address. You guys. Over. And we're done. Okay, document is completed as far as the fillable fields. We're going to save and close. It's going to take it a second here. And now I'm going to dump this into the e-signature phase. Okay, I'm going to move pretty quickly through this. You should understand e-signature. We just need to understand the selection of certain fields. I'm going to select both documents. I want them to go in one envelope, one email to my client at one time to sign. I'm going to select the checkbox as I hover over the document in the top of each one. I now have both documents selected, and I'm going to click the Create Envelope Pin button at the top of the screen. My documents are loading here. They're now in an envelope. I can name the envelope whatever I want. This is from my record. My client does not see this. I've got 2 documents in the envelope. If I forgot one, I can add another one from the room doc. If I'm using a template, I could apply it now. Keep in mind, you might not have a template, and that's okay. You might not know what that is. You'll learn that eventually if that's something you want to use. Right now, there is a pre-assigned template that is designed within the document. I'm going to go ahead and add recipients to the envelope. In this case, I am using pre-tagged roles. I'm going to go here and I'm going to select buyer 1, buyer 2. and buyer agent. For buyer one, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select myself in this case because I set this up as myself and Chase. And as buyer agent, I am also going to select myself because I'm going to sign off as buyer. Okay. So I'm going to add the selected or as buyer agent. And I'm going to put these in order. Now, both of my buyers can receive this document at the same time. It's automatically added me as the buyer agent as signature 2. If you are part of KW Palmetto, then this is all you need. You do not need to add your broker to this document. If you're part of KW Columbia, your broker in charge requires that they also sign off on this. So we would need to add them as a room participant. And we're going to go find them here. So in this case, I'm with Keller Williams Palmetto. So I'm going to select Lori. I'm going to add selected. And I'm going to put her in position number 3. Now, remember, this only applies if you are part of Keller Williams Columbia. Your broker in charge requires that they also sign off on the buyer agency document. Now, down in the bottom here, you can add an email subject. It's going to default to please DocuSign. I can add buyer agency agreement, whatever I want to, so that my client can see this. And then any message I would want to send them. I'm going to go ahead and click next in the top right because I have everybody in signing order. And we're going to quickly scroll through this document here. All of your fields, for the most part, should be there. We're going to scroll through. They are in the order they were. So we've got the disclosure of brokerage relationships, document 1. We scroll down. We've got both buyer signatures in place and the dates. We're great. We're going to keep moving. All the fields I already filled out are there. We're going to scroll down. And you see that at the bottom of each page, I already have initials in place. The backgrounds are fully colored in. And they are required documents. Now, you'll see here that they are white, okay? That means they're optional. So I need to highlight, and I need to make them a required field on the right and move them into place in this case. I'm going to go ahead and delete the other 3 that I don't need. I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to go to section 7. Depending upon how you read this with your client and what they want to do will depend on what you select. Everybody's always going to sign option 1. And 99% of the time, it's going to be options 3 and 5. So we're going to delete, and I just deleted too many, so I'm just going to pull these up here. And I'm going to put them on options 3 and 5. I'm going to highlight them all. I'm going to come over here and say required field. That now will require signatures there. We're going to scroll down. Everything else is already completed, right? We're good. They're required. I'm going to delete these 2 time fields because I don't need them. And the one here. And now all I need to do is add my broker in charge's signature at the bottom. So I'm going to come up here to the top left. In the drop down, I'm going to select my broker's name. I'm going to select their signature box. I'm going to drop it in. I'm going to click the date signed. I'm going to drop it in underneath mine. Because again, remember that's only for Keller Williams Columbia that you have to have your broker sign off on this as well. Once I'm done, everything is ready to go. All my signatures are in place. I'm going to click send. My client's going to get it. They're going to sign it. Once they've signed it, I'm going to get it to sign. Once I've signed it, it's going to go to my broker to sign if I'm part of Keller Williams Columbia. And we're done. Our buyer agency agreement has been executed and they are now officially a client. So best of luck out there. Go find some buyers. If you have any questions, please reach out.